Well, good afternoon, everybody. Welcome to Cancer Support Community Central Ohio's Lunch and Learn program. We are so excited to have our guest speaker, Akisa in. She is the past executive director of the Japanese. I'm sorry.
Yeah, Japan, yeah, that's okay. Japan American Society of Central
Thank you.
Ohio.
I had that written down, but not in front of me. But we are so thrilled that she's able to join us today for an introduction to green tea. This session is being recorded. If you want to go back and review it later, it will be on our website and on our YouTube channel. So I will ask everybody to be muted. If you do have a question, you can unmute yourself, or you can put it in the chat, and I will unmute myself and read that question off to Akisa. So we are ready to go.
Alrighty. Well, thank you so much, everyone. So let's see if I know how to click this. All right. So if I take my mask off, that's how I look like. Okay. So my name is Akisa Fukuzawa. As she introduced, I was born and raised in Japan. Came to United States about 7 years ago, and I started studying at Ohio University. That's what I here for. But of course, since then I work and live here. I have son just graduated high school, so I live in Bexley right now. Well, actually, just moved out. So anyway, I'm in Columbus. So and then I also, in addition to the Japan American Society, I'm a board member of Asian American Commerce Group, which is a small business chamber for Asian-owned business. And I'm also sake sommelier. I don't know if you, so you guys are healthy people. You guys probably don't drink, but
I know. I love the idea that you're a sake sommelier.
Oh yes, so that's a different presentation. Some other times, but I usually do my lecture about the sake and the green tea for sober people in a public library. So I do like Bixby Library, Grandview Library, and a place like this is perfect for me to do a little lecture about the green tea. And I do have a personal import business right now with the COVID. I haven't been over to Japan, as you can imagine. So my supply is a little low, but usually I have some things to sell, but today's not for that. And then more importantly, I'm a baseball player. I'm a advocate for women playing baseball. So I've been doing that for 30 years. So that's just whole another world. But speaking of tea, so let's go to next page. So my lecture is by nature more cultural oriented and a little bit of health and whatnot and history and what so on. So I'll talk stuff like that a little bit later, and then later on we will just have a presentation of how to brew a tea, and we need some of your volunteer help. So first of all, what is a green tea? So all tea leaves are coming from the same plant, if you might notice. So the tea tree is called the Camellia sinensis. The difference is just how they process it. So the leaves are same, coming from same type of tree, same tea tree, and different oxidation level make a tea a difference, such as black tea, brown tea, yellow, white, you might heard, and then green tea. Those are just a different way to process. So the English tea, the black tea is 100% oxidation, meaning that they are really tossed and toasted and, in the process that you basically expose to the air in the maximum way. And then if that is called 100%, then the brown tea, which is like a Chinese oolong tea, you might heard in a Chinese restaurant or grocery stores, those oolong tea is a little bit less, less than 50% oxidation. Yellow tea, white tea, when the colors are getting lighter, meaning that you expose to the oxygen less. So the green tea is just Japanese green tea is basically non-oxidation. When we make the green tea, we don't really expose to oxygen as much as black tea, for example. So it's just a process difference. And then, of course, that tastes different. So that is the basic difference with the green tea and other teas. And just a quick, really, really fast for the history of green tea is that way before BC 2700, I not imagine how old that was. First documented tea consumption in China was around that time. So in Japan, geographically, we're very close to the mainland of China. So a lot of culture and food and whatnot is coming from the China. So about 8 AD, 815, just don't worry about those time frames so much. But then Chinese compressed tea had brought in the first documented tea consumption in Japan. It's called a compressed tea. As you see on the picture, back in days, the transportation of tea is ship. Like you put it on the stack up and put it in the ship and transport it. So even it's a loose tea, they make like a little block. So it's called the compressed tea. And those are documented in Japan around that time. And tea was still rare and only for the monks and aristocrats. So common people are not accustomed to drink tea back in then. It's very rare, very scarce drinks for most of the people. And about the 12th, 13th century, the Japanese Zen monk Eisai studied in China. A lot of Japanese monks and educators, and they go to China and then study their culture and academics and brought them back to Japan. So during that process, Japanese monk studying China brought actual first tea ceremony to Japan, and he wrote the book about effectiveness of tea. So they already know and aware of the health benefit of drinking a tea. So it's a funny thing is just I mentioned about the sake sommelier background. So so tea became popular among a samurai class. Back in days in Japan, there was a different classes, and there's a farmers, merchants, and the samurai with the the sword class and royal class. So the samurai class, the tea became popular. And then this monk Eisai gave his book about the tea, the effectiveness of tea, to the shogun, which is the top guy in samurai group, and with the drinking problem. So apparently there is a drinking problem all the way back in that time frame. And he even suggested that, well, if you want to be a little healthy lifestyle, why don't you drink a green tea? So for me, it's just a funny things that I teach both ends. So so that's also explained to you that how tea was consumed, green tea was consumed to improve your health. So that's the fact is right there. And 15th, 14th centuries, a little bit later, the Kyoto is the ancient capital of Japan. Especially the Uji area was known for producing high quality green teas. So sometimes you hear, if you go to Amazon, try to order green tea, you might hear this is a Uji green tea or something. That means that this is a brand name. It's like a champagne for green tea. So that's the region of Kyoto. And Senno Rikyu is the famous Japanese monk that he is basically established the tea ceremony nowadays that people see. With the next slide you will see, but Japanese tea drinking became such ceremonial, very formal way for Japanese aristocrats to practice. So, and then of course the samurai class is really enjoying that benefit. So that is on the top left picture is a traditional Japanese tea ceremony. And for that, they use type of tea called matcha. And you might hear here and there. The matcha is basically, we'll talk about that later, but powdered green tea. It's not like a tea that I will show you today. It's a brewing loose leaf tea. But basically, you can see this little square in there. So there's a charcoal, and this is like a little stove area. There's a fire underneath, and then you basically boil the hot water there, and then pour into this little cup that you put a few teaspoons of powdered green tea, matcha, and then pour hot water, and then you see the double whisk over there, and then basically make like a bubble, you know, make stir it really hard, and then make frothy matcha tea. So, but to be able to do officially, it's really actually difficult. You have to go to school and practice, and every movement of your hands and knees and head, you have to follow the rule. So that is most of the Japanese don't do it. So that's for the special school. You go there, and very, very rare occasion. I personally never invited to go to those fancy school situation. Maybe I'm avoiding. I don't. So since if you don't learn, you don't know how to do the official way. So I personally don't know. And then that's most of the case for the Japanese. So you might see that, and then thinking, oh, drinking a tea is such a hassle. You know, I have no way to do this. And then if you're thinking about that, tea ceremony, yes, I have no idea how to do it. And so we're not talking about that. I will go through the history a little bit, but then that's not the only way to drink a tea. So, the 17th, 18th century, the tea ceremony became an official Edo government ceremony, making it more popular among regular people. So brewing essential tea. So brewing essential tea, sencha is a loose tea. We call it a sencha, not a powdered matcha. So the sencha tea is just pouring a hot water. I will show you later in a teapot, and then brew it for a couple minutes, and then pour it and drink. So that is much easier way and to drink a tea. So that is became more popular to the common people. So first export of the green tea to the Western world is 1858 US-Japan Friendship Commerce and Negotiation Treaty. This is actually in the history of Japan very important, but this is, if you know business or imports and stuff, have you heard about TPP? Okay, so TPP, this is like a 18th century version of a TPP. So that we start exporting stuff to Western world, and the green tea leaves was one of the first things that Japanese start exporting. So 1859, 181 ton of export. That's a lot of tons of tea was shipped out, exported to other country out of Japan. And green tea became the major export items. And tea was 15-20% of the total Japanese export, mainly to the United States. So this is the back in TPP, major export items was a tea. So that's kind of interesting. Then when you became a 19th century, which is the Meiji era, the samurai class actually who were really supporting became a patron for this fancy, you know, the tea ceremony. This we had a social class change in Japanese government. And those class are dissolved. So because of that, tea interest of maintaining those tea ceremony and tea production and all that is kind of went down. And the same thing is the cheaper tea is start available from India and other part of Asia. So Japan shifted the export items, and the green tea became more popular for domestic consumption, which is just within Japan, where we have a history of drinking tea. So instead of making effort to ship out to other countries to compete with those cheap teas from other places, we became more domestic. So these days, people think the green tea, oh, those are the tea that Japanese people domestically drink. But back in days, there was a lot of export. All right, moving on to, so what is matcha? So I just mentioned that there's a different kind of tea called matcha, and those are basically powdered green tea. So when you make matcha, you grind down entire leaf. The whole leaf is grinding down to become like a powdery substance. So that's called the green tea, the matcha, and the traditionally used for Japanese tea ceremonies. So what we're doing is just diluted that powder with the hot water to drink the whole thing. So if you think about it, that is actually the perfect way to get the most of the nutrition out of the tea leaves instead of brewing it. That's also good for you too, but taking it as a food to the whole leaf is good. So recent years, a lot of Western, especially the American health, industry realized this is cool. This is a good, superfood. They call this the superfood. It's a highly nutritious food that they discover. And there's several benefits for it. And then the things I'm going to mention is I'm not a doctor, I have to disclaim. So those are known that matcha has powdered green tea. Matcha has the benefit of is the a high antioxidant level called the catechins in matcha. So that helps to lower the blood pressure, that known to lowering about blood pressure, lowering LDL, bad cholesterol, which maybe I should take this more, and I have a high cholesterol, preventing a heart disease, heart attack, and stroke, as well as polyphenol is the other antioxidant. What do you call the enzyme? It's to protect the cells against the cancer. That they are known for that. So when the first picture I show, I do sell my products at the farmer's market. That was the Worthington farmer's market picture that you saw. And I talked to a lot of people, the customers coming up and talk to me. And then a lot of them say, oh, my doctor, I had a cancer. My doctor told me that if you want matcha green tea is good for you. So she just grabbed and then, wanted to take it home with her. And some people who are actually into the health and then learn about things know about this health effect. So I was like, well, that's great. So, but of course, you need to consult with your physicians for everything. So that's what I told from the customer. So also they have known to ease the arthritis inflammation. So there's some kind of anti-inflammatory effect in this food, and also known for better dental health. So the green tea can help keep healthy level of acid in your mouth. So they will basically fight with your germs in your mouth, keep it clean. The Japanese tradition is that after you have each meal, they just, your grandma, your mom, grandma, go to the kitchen and they take out the tea sets and then provide a green tea at the end of the each meal. So there might be some reason that after you eat, those are good to clean your mouth and hydrate. And also, it's tea, so it has a caffeine. So the green tea has a high, healthy level of caffeine, and it can keep you awake and then focus, which is good and bad sometimes. And the green tea's caffeine effects different. In my opinion, it's a different the way that coffee caffeine does. So if you drink a coffee in the morning, I'm a coffee drinker too. So it just gives you a jolt and just instantly wake up and then ready to go. And about 2 or 3 o'clock in the afternoon, you're tired again, and you need another cup of coffee, right? The tea caffeine is more mild. So when you drink it, you don't feel like you got jolt like a coffee's caffeine, but it stays in your body and gradually working, and that stays longer. So the bad news for that is if you drink close to your bedtime, you might notice that you cannot sleep. So if you want to drink, and especially if you like a very strong tea, and then if you worry about going to sleep, I would avoid, right before bedtime. So, but other than that, I drink actually evening time. For some reason, I can't drink iced tea or black tea after lunchtime. And then that will keep me awake. That gets worse as I get older. So I have to be very careful during lunchtime, and sometimes I want to have iced tea, but try not to. For the green tea, even I drink in the afternoon, even early time, like right after the dinner, it will be okay for me. So that wouldn't keep me up as much as the black tea does. So I know it's all depends on who you are, but if you try and see how that works for yourself. But the point is, it does have a caffeine. Customers often ask me, does it have a caffeine? And because some people are sensitive to caffeine. So yes, it does have a caffeine, but it might be different than the coffee caffeine. So you have to test it out. And that's just a little, so I have a business background, so I'm sorry to throw those numbers to you, but this is to me a very interesting. The tea consumption trend in USA, because back in days when I came here in the US, like years ago, a lot of people don't drink tea, especially the green tea was like, people are like, and then they only have just a tiny Lipton green tea bag, and then they just, I hate to say that's awful. To me, it's as a green tea. So it's like already it's brown. So this is not green tea. But over the years, recent years, a lot of people want to drink tea, which is great. So this is a few years before COVID numbers, and 2017, the total tea sale was $12.5 billion by, this is the organization, by the US Tea Association. So that's a really big number. It's a really big industry. And the one on the left, the picture is just my snapshot. Just I walked into the Giant Eagle near my house, and there's a shelf full of different teas, and that's just all kinds of teas, and that is just to me great. So the third largest import of the tea in the world is United States. Number one is actually Russia. Number two is Pakistan. The United States is the third largest import of tea. And as coffee consumption decreases in US, it is true that new generation, they are not as much as a coffee drinker in America as you or your parents, your grandparents used to be. And US is the only country increasing the tea import and consumption along all Western countries. So that's kind of interesting to me. And then tea is popular among all age group. That's the good thing is that even the little kid can drink tea. And then older grandparents generation can drink tea. It's tea. The coffee is more, you know, younger people who has to go to work and then you know you have to be work late, so that is a working generation. It's not for kids friendly drink. And then as you get older, and I try to stay away from coffee and then shift it to tea. So it is good for everybody. And 80% of the tea consumption is iced tea, however. So a lot of Americans drink tea as iced tea rather than hot tea, but still increasing area that more and more people interested in buying loose tea. Again, back in days when I first came here, it was very difficult to find a loose, even loose black tea in grocery store, but now it's, as you see, there's a lot of company making it. US domestic tea consumption breakdown is 80% black tea, 60% is a green tea, and 4% oolong and white and other. So still people think that tea means black tea. But that's globally, that's true. And then, but green tea is a 60%. It's promising to me for somebody in that industry. So that's great. And continuing rapid growth is projected in this industry. And then by 2024, sales will be $21.3 billion. That's according to the Market Watch. Also, this is a pre-COVID, so I don't know how that looks like after COVID. Okay, so this is a good part. So how to brew green tea. So like I mentioned, this is the easiest way to consume and prepare a tea, but you might want to know a few rules, because then if you do so, you get the most benefit out of nutrition-wise as well as taste-wise. So here's a few tricks. And then there's a 4 process I'll explain to you. And first, so I'll just go. So here's the things that I brought today. So those are typical teapot for Japanese tea. There's a Chinese tea ceremony has a whole different set. So you might want to take a different class for the Chinese tea serving, but this is the Japanese green tea. So this is the typical one that you see. And then a handle is on this side. So you basically move it this way. And also you can see something like this, and then you just hold this into this. So, okay. So first you need to measure tea leaves.
Akisha, this is Darlene. Could you carry the microphone over to the table with you? With you walking away, it's hard to hear.
Oh, okay, this round thing, right? This
Yep,
is
perfect.
okay. Well, why don't I just hold this? So I will show you how to serve 2 cups of green tea first for the 2 servings. Okay. So the measures of tea leaves, you want to measure with your teaspoon. I'm not supposed to move.
Yeah, it's just, yeah, if you touch
Oh.
anything up here, so
Ooh, I
yeah,
see.
grabbing it by the bottom. Let me
Sorry
just,
about that.
no, you're good. We didn't cover that.
Okay.
Okay, we'll just put this right here.
Okay, thank you. So, and then number two, you pour the hot water in the serving. So this is the tricky part. Well, she went out, so, but the tricky part is when you pour a hot water, do not put into this teapot as you think you might. Pour into the cups first, the serving cups first. So the reason is, this is very important, to cool down the hot water. So you do not want boiling water or hot water pour into the pot directly. That is not recommended, because if you do so, the bitterness, the hotter the water is, the bitterness of the leaves is coming out. So you end up drinking really strong bitter tea, which you don't want to do that. So you need to cool down a hot water. That's the number one benefit, to pour to the cup first. Number two, warm up the serving cups. So you don't want to have a hot drink with the cold cup, and then when you drink it, it's not really comforting. So you want to have a warm cup also. So to do those two things at once, and then also you can measure exactly how much water you need. So you need to put in cup. Also, I'm going over there and pour the hot water here, so I cannot show you over there. But when you fill the cup, don't fill up all the way to the edge. And 80% is the key number. So fill 80% of the cup to measure the right amount of water, so that there's two things. Number one, that's just culturally we do. It's more like a reserving cultural background, that we don't top off things when we give it to the people. So it's 80%. But also, if you notice, the Japanese teacups doesn't have the handle like the coffee or tea.
Akisha, we have a question in the chat. Do you strain the tea leaves as you pour?
Good question. So if you use this handy dandy Japanese teacups, they usually a strainer, like a mesh part is built in. I don't know if you can see it. So if you use one of those, it's automatically strained. So you don't have to use additional strainer. So in this one also, there is actually built in. So, okay. So if you have this Japanese tea pot, they will give you, if it's not built in, they will give you like an insert that like a little things go in there, so that you don't. And then if you buy the teapots, just found out it didn't come with, it's just a big hole, then you do need to strain it. But hopefully this is just much easier, because you don't have to cleaning up the separate items. So hopefully you can find, there's a Japanese store next door, right? The Tensuke Market. They sell most of the things I'm talking about. So anyhow, so the cups doesn't have a handle. So you hold the top part. That's why you don't want to have to fill up the hot water all the way, then you don't have any place to put your hands on. So that works both ways. So the key is cool down the hot water by pouring into the cup first, not into the teapot, and then fill 80%. So I'm just going to do that now. Over there to the kitchen. So if you guys have any questions.
What would be the amount of tea leaves you would use if you're making tea in a normal American coffee mug?
Well, so the tea amount, the leaves amount is the same. So I think you stepped out to the bathroom. We have 1 teaspoon per cup. And if you are serving for, let's say 2 people, and then 2 plus 1 is 3. If you're making 3 people in the pot, then it will be 3 plus 1. So it's 4, right? So it's just a little extra for, you know, how many people that you are making. And are you talking about just 1 person?
Yeah, I would just make it for 1 person in like a normal, in like this.
Yeah, mugs are like.
Mugs are probably bigger than those. So I
Yes.
will go with the making for the 2. If the 1 teaspoon is
2
for
tea-
2
2
for,
teaspoons
yeah, 2 teaspoons
Plus
for.
1 extra teaspoon.
Well,
No,
probably not for that, for
okay.
just 1 person. Yeah, so that's the other thing, the culturally, when we make teas, we make tea to usually more than 1 person, like the family setting. So
Yeah,
that, those things are designed to, but then I understand there's a 1 person. That's what the, you know, that's why they invented like a tea bags and stuff, right?
yes.
So if
yes.
you wanted to do it by yourself and the tea, they have this little cute teacup with the strainer built in. And then
Oh,
you
yeah.
can just put the, you know, or one of those tea, you know, like a little clipping thing.
Yeah,
Then you
little
can-
tea,
yeah.
teaspoon with a strainer.
Yeah.
they have
So
those.
then I will go with 2 teaspoonful for
Okay.
1 serving.
Okay,
And then if you want to make for the gigantic, you know, well, it's use your, you know, normal measuring. And then depends on how strong you want to make it too. So some people want to make a little stronger than, you know,
Okay.
others. So
thank you.
yeah. So now it's I think it's cool. So what you do is now number 3. So we went to 1, 2, and 3. So you pour this, guys, into here like so. And then put your lid on and wait for 45 to 60 seconds, right? So you don't need to wait for like a 2, 3, 4, 5 minutes. No, you just need to wait for at most 60 seconds. And 60 seconds is a long time if you're waiting.
Akisa, we have a question in the chat. Can you use the tea leaves more than once?
Yes, I was just want to mention that to you, but usually you can drink 2 like reps easily. You can push 3 times, and then you can start feeling a little thinner. So, but it's common to use more than once. And then I would say, don't just throw away, you just use once. So I will go with at least 2 rounds so that you get the most out of it. And yes, so absolutely, you can use more than once. Okay, so pour the green tea back into the serving cup. So let's say we waited enough, right? So what you do is there's another trick, is that when you pour it back to those 2 cups, now we don't need to worry about how much because it's exactly 2 cups in there, right? But don't pour 1 all the way 80% first and go to next, because the bottom is usually thicker, yes, stronger. So what you do is you just have to go back and forth and back and forth to make it, you know, even.
Same strainer.
Yep. And then when you do this, make sure dripping all the way, you know, nothing left, because if you leave some water in there, it's going to start brewing process. And then when you try to get the second one, it's going to be extremely strong. So you make sure to pour everything to that. And does anybody want to try tasting? We need a volunteer.
I mean, I've had green tea often. Do you, someone want to try it? that has
Well,
tried
we,
it before?
they can try the next one. So,
Cheers.
cheers. And then we have a cup. So teas for everybody today.
Okay, as long as everything-
Yes. So go ahead and taste. And then, and tell me that how do you
I
like?
thought that, I had never heard that you only brewed for that short of amount of time. So that's interesting.
Okay, well, I don't know how the official like English tea brewing process. Some people-
It's usually longer for a pot, but it depends on, you have a very small pot, so
Yes.
it's fairly concentrated.
Right.
I was
So,
gonna say,
It's good.
a British teapot is probably 4 cups.
right. And then it's mild, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, so because we lower the temperature and so that is
Yeah.
big difference. So that's the key. So make sure you do that. Yes, so now I need some volunteer person to do from the beginning. So this, unless you practice, you don't know how you do it at home. So I'll let you practice. So I need somebody who wants to do this full process. So anybody wants to do it? All right, come on, yay. So now your task is making 3 cups, serving 3 cups. So what should we do? So this is the pot that we're going to use. Those are the cups. And then this is the tea. What's your name?
Bethany.
Bethany, thank you so much. So this is the, all right, so I'll let you do.
All right.
All right,
No pressure.
no pressure. It's just a tea,
We have
so
a learning
don't,
curve.
yeah. So if you,
So how do we warm up the cups? I mean, I know we don't need to do it right now, but when you mentioned the cups should be warm, what do you do to warm them?
to pour the hot water,
Oh, just the
And
water
You
warms
warm up
it.
You-
the
the
cup
wa-
with
the-
hot water.
yeah.
Okay,
that's the
Okay.
water that you're going to drink.
okay.
So,
I didn't know if you needed to heat the cup actually ahead of time.
well, that's the whole purpose of the putting in the cup is measure
Mhm.
and cool down and also warm up the cup. So that's the function, to do all what at
One
once.
cup will be hot with the tea.
Right.
So that's
So
two.
theoretically, you would take your tea from hot water from the kettle and you would
Into your
first
cups.
warm the cups
Mhm.
and measure it, then stick that hot water on top of the leaves.
Yeah, to put it back in the, yeah,
So this
So-
is number 4 because we're
Okay.
doing 3 people.
correct.
Okay.
Yes.
And
That's good.
I
Yes.
didn't make them too mounded. I tried to make them kind of
Yeah,
flat. Is
yeah.
that-
So the other way to measure is, this is totally different. I don't know, make you guys confused, but the bigger pot you have, you need to make more tea, right? So somebody told me in Japan that the best way to measure eyeballing things without those things, spoons are, is that there's always a bottom ring in any pot. The bigger the pot gets, the rings gets bigger. If you cover the whole bottom with the ring part,
Mhm.
with the tea, that's enough for the pot. to
Okay.
serve. So that's kind of clever, but right now, for the sake of learning how many teaspoons, that's usually how we measure. Because sometimes you do different ways. Are you comfortable getting the hot tea?
I think
I'll
so.
help you. And this is the. And then make sure how far we want to, how far we have a water. Do we fill out all the way to the top? No. So, well,
80%.
yeah. Doesn't have to precisely 80%, but just give us some room on the top. So that's the. That is the key. So,
Green tea is an acquired taste.
yes, so some people, I have a friend that doesn't like green tea at all. He likes black tea, but he just doesn't like the green tea, so. All right, thank you.
That one's a
So,
little shy.
that's all right, so then, okay, so what's the next step?
All right, so I think we are just going to pour them in.
Yes,
Yes.
that's gonna be
For
the
90
number 3.
for 90 or 60 seconds.
And you don't sweeten with honey, do you?
No,
Yeah.
but if you taste it, isn't that sweet a little bit? Taste it a little.
Yeah, it has an interesting flavor. I've had green tea before.
Yeah. So we don't
You know,
sweeten or milk or anything. That's just straight up. But that's that's how we enjoy most of the time. But thinking with the matcha, if you go to Starbucks, they have a matcha latte, frappuccino, all that stuff. They just put the cream on it and stuff like that.
Mhm.
So you can enjoy however you want, but this is probably the healthiest way, not adding anything to your cup. So I know it's not 60 seconds, but I think it's close. So how are you going to pour this? Yeah, for those things, make sure you hold the lid because it might, as you tell, it might.
especially the more you do it.
It's not as colorful coming out yet.
The bottom is
It's more clear.
at the top part, yeah. But if you see
It's getting darker.
It's definitely. The in Japanese culture, do you ever reuse the used grounds in cooking?
some people do, yes, and they put it in, they add some soy sauce or something and they cook it, or they use for something else, or just they use for, what do you call the soil, you know? you
Oh,
put it as
compost,
a
yeah.
compost,
Mhm.
yeah. All right,
So it's really a lot less.
yeah,
the-
the
the
trick
water in
is,
it.
Yeah, that's interesting.
Yeah.
because I think that some will absorb into the leaf
Mhm.
clearly because they were dry before and now wet. So that might take some. Okay, who do you want to take one? And okay,
I'll serve
your
them,
friend.
just pass
Yeah,
them.
there's do you
I'll
have your
pass
friend?
them back to
Oh,
her.
okay,
You know, walk.
anybody? Okay, so. Oops. All right, so whoever hasn't been drink, I will offer the second round is just as good as the first one, so don't be discouraged. Oh, I'm good at the second. So same thing. You pour into the cup to 80%. And then heat up the cup. I will put this one back in this guy because those are the 2 servings.
A question,
Of course.
just two real quick ones. One, I was wondering about how important it was for the leaves to be organic. And the other one, I was wondering, one of our adult sons is into fitness. He religiously drinks green tea before, I think it's before, not after he works out.
Mhm.
Is there any metabolism or fat burning qualities, or is that a myth?
I'm sure they have a certain effect, but I don't know because I'm not qualified to say so. But when you do exercise, normally I'm personally like an athlete, I call athlete. So if we do the exercise or game or whatever, usually we said the load with the carb. When you're done, load with the protein because you
Right.
need to make up with the protein that you lost,
Right,
right? So tea doesn't have any of that.
yeah.
So I don't know how that effective. If my calm down, give you caffeine a little bit. So I don't know that's what he's
I-
talking about?
I think it's
don't know.
something he learned in school. He was a nutrition science major and
Well, maybe he knows more.
no, I don't know if he does or he doesn't, but
Mhm.
I'm curious. I'll have
Yeah,
to ask him.
I will ask him what's the specific benefit from the tea that will gives you that. And so, well, I don't know, you can see. Anybody can see this? Okay, so this is a warm cup. I'm pouring back and forth. How's ladies back there that taste green tea that Bethany made?
It's, well, I think it is, matcha is probably an acquired,
It's an acquired
yeah,
taste.
because I drink, well, and it's probably not real green tea, but you know, the
I think,
is in the,
Uh-huh.
oh, there's brand.
Tazo?
Yes, Tazo. I like the Tazo that is in, which is green and then does have like, you know, spearmint and various things. But, you know, much
Yes.
different taste, you know, than this. So I wonder
yes,
how
so
healthy that is
most of
versus-
the tea that I encounter is not even have the benefit of not oxidized this benefits. Those are, because when you see the leaves or liquid, it's almost close to brown. That is already fully oxidated, you know, it's not. So this more like a grassy, earthy taste, isn't it? It's like a vegetable, almost like. So that raw taste, if you don't like it, I will say this tea, maybe we put it in too long or something, pretty strong. I can tell it's pretty strong. Compared to most of the time you see in the Japanese restaurant, they give you probably more water than the
Yes.
tea.
Yes.
So very strong. So, but who hasn't had the tea yet? Oh,
Akisa, this is Darlene. We have two questions in the chat. The first one is, do you reboil the water for the second round?
I'll get you one, okay?
Akisa, did you hear?
Yes, so the water temperature, I would say yes. So I'm talking about the putting a boiling water into the cup. So whenever you put the cup, water into the cup, that will be probably the temperature that you wanted to use. So if it's already lowered it, then it depends how cool that water gets. I guess technically, if it's not too hot, then you might want to reboil. And or if it's just hot enough for you, you pour into, so skip that cooling part. You can straight put that into the pot and then brew it, because you don't want to have super cold water to use for brewing. So I guess it depends how cool in the meantime. So ideally, I'm talking about this, this process is if you just boil the hot water to drink a tea, this is what you should do. So does all that make sense?
Yes. And the second question is, did you use leaves or the matcha?
Okay, so I use the leaves called the sencha. So this is not a matcha. So this is a sencha tea leaves. I don't, where's the camera?
That's good to know.
Yeah, this is a sencha. So basically it's a loose tea leaves. And matcha is a powdered one, which I have a sample here. So this is the matcha. So I don't know what's the best way to show, but I'll show it to my hand. So do you see this? So this is basically the powder.
It's a really fine powder.
This is fine powder. Some people drink this, just put a hot water in it and then mix it up and drink. And then you want to put like an almond milk, or, you know, you can put some vanilla in there. This is, you can really play with a lot. So, yeah. So anyway, so hold on. So this is the next one. I have more slide, actually. All right, so the matcha. So speaking of matcha, so what you drink today and brew is the sencha. So you can buy the loose tea, green tea, and then do this brewing process. But if you like matcha, the reason I like matcha a lot is that you can kind of manipulate to make desserts or cooking or whatnot. So this is the the recipe that I use, and my son likes, when he was little, he likes to eat the Rice Krispie, just like in American kids.
That's nice.
And if you put a marshmallow, if you put this green tea powder, mix it with the marshmallow and then melt it down and then make the Rice Krispie, just the same way as you normally make the Rice Krispie, it become a matcha Rice Krispie, and this is delicious. So you start flavoring this earthy green tea flavor into this dessert, and that's fabulous. And I drizzle a little white chocolate on top, and then that's just a treat. So also, let's see, that's probably it. This is the brochure that I have, and then inside has matcha and cookie, matcha cookie, and the white chocolate chip matcha cookie recipes in here. This is really good too. So you can really play around if you are a baker or cook. It's very stimulate your creativity by this matcha powder. So easy to mix. Of course, I guess you brew a tea and then you use the essence to mix with something else, but it's a whole lot harder. But if you have this powder, matcha powder, you can use all kinds of things. And then you can mix with the ice water and drink before maybe your son might do it, before after exercise. Put it in a bottle, shake it and drink. So that's another way to enjoy it. And
I don't know if, sorry, I don't know if this would lose the nutrition or not, but in the past, once in a while, when I have thought about it, I've taken leftover matcha tea that I just didn't want to drink, and I mixed it with canned coconut milk or cream and blended it and threw it in ice cube trays for smoothies.
Oh, that's absolutely.
But I don't know if that would make it lose its nutrition.
I don't think so. What if you lose anything? Probably if you bake like a long time and then start losing a color. The color is the key. The color you see, greenness, is the green tea color. The green, like a plant color. So the plant is nice and alive, it's green. When it's dead, it's brown, right? So whenever you see anything brown, probably they lost the livelihood. So I think that's where the nutrition of the green tea particularly is there for you. So to check the color next time if you drink the tea, green tea, so-called green tea, if they serve you, if it's brown, you say, well, this is not green tea. It's not even green. So, but the tea that I show you today, of course, you can get the tea leaves from Tensuke over there. And if you serve it yourself, I'm sure you can duplicate the nice green color. And if you prefer this is too strong for you, you can water it down. That's not a problem. And it depends how you like it. So, yes.
How do you spell it?
Oh, sencha. Yes, Sencha. Sencha.
I thought it was good. It tastes like water.
Oh, really? Well, it's a plant, so that's that's probably yes. Asparagus. That's first time I heard the asparagus word. So
Well, Akisha, we are greatly appreciative of you taking your time, expertise to share with us for this Lunch and Learn. This message has been recorded, and you'll be able to see her contact information on the slides here on that recording. But I greatly appreciate your time. And if the ladies in the classroom could stay for a second, I'll be right over because I have some things to share. So thanks everybody for
Okay.
joining us today.
Well, thank you so much. Hopefully you had some experience. Thank you for coming. And then
Thank you. That was great. Bye-bye.